Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I've got a number of books that were sent over by HENK Comics and Manga of Amsterdam. These were left for us at the table at Mocha, which we really appreciated. It was just there at our table. And there's a little note here from Michelle and Alfred that says, thanks for sending over some copies of You Don't Know Jack and Strange Death, and they gave us some comics as a return gift. They're talking about Chad in Amsterdam's Megalo newspaper, which I'll be looking at pretty soon, and we're shouting out some other projects that they have that they like. But the really cool little projects. This one here is a nice little map that was made that shows like different comic shops and museums and stuff in Amsterdam, and it looks like it was part of a free comic book day exclusive thing that just shows some of the shops in Amsterdam and the metro. So I thought that was just a fun little piece of design there. Really cool. Not a comic necessarily. Then we have El Gordo Goes All Out by Larry Cook, a mini comic. And this is a fun little like formalist experiment, I think. It's a very odd constraint, but it's like a constrained comic, and I kind of like that. So the constraint here seems to be that there's 4 panels, and then the gag is basically that this pig is like the most anti-pig pig, oftentimes trying to get himself cooked and eaten. And there's a few where it goes off and it's just kind of like enjoying things that pigs aren't supposed to enjoy, or hating things that pigs are supposed to enjoy. But the majority of them is just like, can I set up and pay off in 4 panels these different things that that lead to a pig getting eaten? Like here he's going back home and then trying to get himself cooked in a goulash. So that's just a fun little conceit there. This one's extra funny to me. He says, I love to dress up. I'll wait till an innocent vegetarian walks by, and when he takes out a bite of my body, I'll say, how do you like them apples? And that was particularly funny because like 2 hours before I read this, I was just watching one of Louis C.K.'s specials where he's making a joke about Good Will Hunting, and Matt Damon's line in there, how do you like them apples, and what a stupid line it is. So that added some extra oomph to that joke for me. So that was a fun little book. I enjoy it. This is another Larry Cook mini comic, Seal the Deal. And it's really short book, but basically you have a little seal being raised by a human family, and very coddled little seal, kind of love the way I treat my dogs. And then they finally get let loose into the wild and immediately get eaten by a shark. And while I was reading it, for some reason, I had the sense that this book was something like more personal, like less of a gag and more personal, in the sense that it's like this was maybe made by someone who feels that they had too easy of a life, and then when they went out in the world, they were a little naive and got eaten by predators. And then at the end here it says no animal feelings were hurt during the making of this comic, only humans. So that kind of confirmed for me that this was like a little kind of metaphor for someone who's raised in a really nice environment and got predated on once they got let into the wild. So pretty potent for like a little 8-page comic or whatever. So Larry Cook, Larie, is someone who's interesting me. The kind of 2 different uses for comics in these little minis, but both went really well. And then this book here, O, and then you've taken the O out of comics, so Smix, number 0 for 0 cents. These are all things that were given out for free, apparently. I really liked this book. It's definitely the poetics of form. This is done by the artist, let's see, it said in the back here, Sampler Man, and it's number 18 of 30. So that's cool. This is a really limited thing. So I'm going to go ahead and flip through it since it's a limited job. But basically, again, working with the constraint of like having to construct a comic entirely out of O's and zeros and try and make a story out of that. And I just love how thorough Sampler Man is with this. And you see just all of the variations throughout the book on these O's and these Cheerios and these donuts. And this is all stuff that's obviously been either actually physically cut out or probably more likely digitally sampled and then remixed. And it was really fun because like looking at this, the abstraction in it and the poetics of form seemed really musical to me. Like my experience reading this, I was kind of almost like bopping along, like I could feel the music. And there were some things that were I don't know, not like legitimately surprising, but they struck me in a visceral way as I was flipping through. Like the change from the really dense stuff to these more open pages just works really well. And with this kind of poetics of form stuff, you can't ever expect like a standard narrative. So I'm going into it looking for, these kind of like resonances between colors and shapes. And this is something I've been talking with my students a lot about recently, is Gestalt theory of psychology and ways that people psychologically group things. And obviously in comics you have panels that are grouping, but like these are similar and they're in a common path, so they're all grouped. And this is split into two sides, so they're grouped, but also these are similar, so there's like I can either split this into two, or I can see this as a continuous background with the thing on top of it. And that kind of just purely formal play with the elements and principles of art is becoming more and more interesting to me in comics, and I think this one really, really does a great job of it. Like I said, maybe because of all the O's and I'm just hearing oh, but like it did get very musical to me reading it, and these things coming sideways and forwards in space have like a kind of noises to them. And it's just really interesting to me. Like here, even where these ellipses are having conversations, but they're all with circles, and then you have like this one here talking in like a nut instead of a circle. It's like a hexagonal shape or octagonal shape or whatever. I just think that's funny. There's really some like humor embedded in this. These things being turned on their side, and now they look less like an O, they look more boxy. Like it's just all really, really clever, really, really smart, visually really compelling to look at. And yeah, it took me on like a trippy little journey, I guess, that I wasn't really expecting when I first picked it up. So really, really enjoyed this book. I don't know if there's only 30 of them out there, how people could get copies of this, but definitely give Sampler Man a follow on Instagram. The stuff that I saw in there was equivalently like really cool, and it seems to all be constructed out of comics. That seems to be where the samples are coming from. So Sampler Man's someone I would like to see a lot more like, books like this from. I don't know, I'll have to do more kind of stalking of the Instagram to see if there's any more products, but really, really enjoyed this. So thank you so much from the people at HENK's Comics in Amsterdam. These were really, really great series of books, all three of them. Even though they're short, I really got a lot out of them, and a really cool map here of Amsterdam. So thank you all a lot, the people in Amsterdam. Definitely please go support this store, and if you can order some of these books from them, I would definitely encourage it. They're really cool books. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us, there's two ways to do it. The first one is through our Patreon. We have 2 tiers of engagement on there. The first tier is just early access to our videos. On the second tier, you can get access and participation, voting rights in our exclusive webcomic, Pranay Day. It's an experiment that keeps track of the updates in the AI image makers. And also you would get access to early previews of the things that Sean and I are working on, personal artwork, graphic novels that we're working on. Sean just put up some beautiful sketches that he's been doing, so there's a lot of stuff like that. Any of the money that we make from that just goes back into buying the books that we review, so we try and turn it into the community and make sure we have a good batch of things to expose you to coming up. So that's really appreciated. If you want to support Living the Line itself, the best things to do is to support Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of Sean's products now. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. This is translated by Ryan Holmberg and is very large for a manga. So that's a really cool feature of this book, this standard manga size. And this is just a 200 some odd page representation of what Yokoyama Yuichi thinks of the Carnival Parade, and he's just made this like relentlessly loud and rhythmic book that pushes all kinds of amazing boundaries of what comics and manga are, and we could not recommend this book more. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.